on what the panel will be about. So through this panel, we want to talk about what makes successful VR LBE content. We'll all share sort of our experiences on what has worked for content for VR LBE, for the customers, for the operators, and also a little insight on what each of our business models are, and in terms of being a content production studio, what that business is like. So we can go ahead and one by one introduce ourselves as we wait for Mike. I'm Jeremy Lam, CEO of Virtual World Arcade, and we specialize in developing VR LBE content.
Hi, good morning again. You probably saw me yesterday, but I'm Kevin Vitale, the CEO of VR Studios, and we produce turnkey systems, operating system management software, and AAA content.
And I'm Aaron Polka, head of attractions at 2-Bit Circus, where we have a 38,000 square foot micro amusement park with a lot of different types of attractions, and not just VR, but including a lot of VR systems. We have Hologate there, we have We Play VR, we have a Stereon VR, we have a Starbreeze setup of the raft, we have Modal VR, and we also have some standalone stations running Springboard and a couple of different configurations. And we're always looking at bringing in new content, but also part of the reason I'm on this panel is that my background actually started in VR development a little over 20 years ago at Walt Disney Imagineering, building attractions for Disney Quest, and then Sony Development, building motion simulator attractions and things like that. So I'm a big fan of making VR content for LBE.
Hi, my name is Jikhan Jung. We are the game studio, a VR game studio in Silicon Valley. Our company initially started not intended to make games for VR arcade, but right after we shipped our first game, we found out our 7-day retention is like 80%, which is really high. So we found out we made a really good game. But then later on, we found out the IDs like VR Arcade 1, VR Arcade 2, VR Arcade 3. Like, yeah, we found out that's the arcade has a bunch of IDs to demo our games. So that's how we got into the VR Arcade. So as of today, so after that, we shipped multiple games targeted for online and offline. But then later on, we actually got into the contract with a company called Bandai Namco in Japan. They are operating the VR Zone, the biggest VR arcade in Japan. Yeah, and then so we made a Galaga, which is very old arcade game, into VR. So that's the what it did in 2017. And then at the same time, while we are making games, we also found that maybe owning the VR arcade by yourself might be giving good insight what people like. So we acquired the biggest Korean VR arcade called VR Plus, and then we operate the arcade about a year and a half. But then we found that it's very hard to be profitable running VR arcade, so we sold our business to other company. But so our company is doing the VR gaming developing. At the same time, we have experience to run the arcade.
Thank you. So given all the introductions, we're on the content panel. We develop content, but we also sort of each of our businesses put our legs in several other types of businesses as well. So we want to learn a little bit more about what is your business model and how does your business generate revenue? What are all the different things that you do, also in addition to content? So I'll start us off. While we focus on developing VR LBE content and license content out to VR arcades and VR LBE centers, we also, to help pay the bills, we do enterprise contracts, we create apps, and we create games for companies who hire us to do it. We also do mobile events here in the Bay Area. We do corporate events and birthday parties, and that also helps us stay in the know of what customers need, what operators need, so we can better design these VR content, and also the conference as well. So that's sort of what our business looks like with a primary focus on content.
Yeah, okay, so as I explained a little bit yesterday, kind of the core of our IP and our business strategy revolves around our platform, right? And so we create this operating management platform specifically for LBE experiences to manage, operate, maintain, report, license content in an LBE experience. And then on top of that, we both internally produce in our own studio and produce other content through that operating system platform called AMP. And then we package all of that, the content and the operating system software, into form factors that we call like the vArcade Atom and the vArcade Arenas that are turnkey drop-in solutions for LBE providers. So there are revenue streams associated with each of those. The full system is an acquisition by an LBE venue. The operating management platform is an annuity licensed software product that's also available for other, excuse me, other types of platforms and devices, such as we've deployed with Dave & Buster's. And then content also will have its own licensing scheme.
Actually, sorry to jump in real quick, I forgot. One point is we offer a 25K a turnkey solution, which is also part of our revenue stream as well. Sorry.
No, we offer turnkey.
Fantastic. So prior to opening our micro amusement park, 2-Bit Circus did a lot of agency-style work, developing all kinds of attractions and clouds that rain tequila and all kinds of fun things, including a lot of VR projects for the NFL and for the Olympics but now focusing more on working with partners to collaborate to build things or bringing in turnkey systems into the micro amusement park. But our business model is spread across a lot of different components in that space. We do have full food and beverage. We build a robotic bartender. We have story rooms, including a physical escape room. And then we have classic arcade games mixed in with a lot of indie games, along with a lot of games that we've made ourselves for the arcade midway. And we've built some of the VR experiences ourselves too. And some of these experiences are ticketed. You buy a ticket in advance, like an escape room, and it's sort of a destination experience. Some of the VR experiences are included in that. But then others are just walk up and play. And so there's a wide variety of price points within that. There isn't a one ticket buys everything. Everything is a la carte so that people can come in and just have a beer and look around at all the crazy stuff happening, or they can dip in and as deep as they want to.
Business model, right? So in terms of our business model, so we have our own contents, and then we have two different ways to monetize it. And one way is we license it as a per minute base, like a VR Junkies and Control B. We are not on the Springboard yet, but they usually pay between like 3 cents to 10 cents per minute played. So that's how we monetize. And then also, most of the case in Asia, we just give the license to certain company, and then they do whatever they want, and then we get the lump sum revenue from them. So that's our revenue source for our own contents. And then when we work with Bandai Namco, it is more like a work for hire concept. So they just pay the lump sum amount in the beginning. It's usually like 6-digit, not close to 7-digit number, but more low number. But we get the payment, and then after we ship the game, we get some maintenance fee from them. That's the typical model for us.
So going into the content now, who is, two questions. Who is the target customer of your business? Are you B2C, B2B? And then who's the target audience for your content, whoever is playing the content? For us, we license our content to businesses via arcade locations, LBE centers. And the target audience of our content is family-friendly corporate events, birthday parties.
Yeah, we're a B2B2C. Right, so everything we try to do is focused on the LBE customer, and so the B customer is the operator, the venue, the 2-Bit Circuses type, right, the Dave & Buster's. So we design the product and the systems and the operating management platform specifically for that environment. That being said, we also know that it only is successful once it gets all pulled all the way through and is ultimately successful with the end customer that's paying the ticket, right? So we see through our B2B, our direct customer, and think all the time about that end experience of the end user. So we kind of see that we have two tiers of the customer.
So we've shifted from B2B to B2C, and our primary demographic we call post-college pre-kids. So people that have spare time, spare money, and friends that like to go out together. And then our secondary demographic are families. On the weekend days, we see a lot of families coming in with their kids. And then our third is corporate events. We have a lot of corporate events, private parties. We just had a huge bar mitzvah that took over the entire park, had 300 plus people attending. And so we get a lot of those kinds of events, as well as the Games Beat Summit is going to be hosted at the park later this month. So it's a wide variety of different kinds of events.
Yeah, so our case is maybe B2C online, but in terms of the arcade, B2, B2C, as you guys. And then our target is actually mostly female, like female 20s. Mainly because our experience with the Bandai Namco, especially because they are located in Shinjuku, the core town for dating. So our goal is to make the girl to scream while they are playing games. So yeah, so that's the main target we are aiming for our games.
I just add that in terms of the demographic, we don't think about it the same way the venue does, but we try to provide a variety of things to address the varied demographic that the venue would have. So we think about it more like the genre or the type of game, and that is, depends a lot on, it's not exclusive to male or female, it's not exclusive to age group, time of day. There are a number of variables that the venues go through, and we try to provide the right variety and the right accessibility of that content to those.
Which I think is really important to emphasize. Our customers ultimately are humans. I mean, we really do want a wide swath of people. We aren't really targeting any specific group. We cater in different ways to different groups, but we really want anybody to really feel like they can come in and experience all kinds of different things, including VR.
So the next question is why LBE? When you saw the market data, did your research on the business, how did you compare the in-home consumer market developing for that versus developing for VR LBE, and why did we end up in VR LBE? For us, it was a passion-driven and sort of vision-driven decision. We see the best experiences you can only have in VR LBE with the space, with the people, with the haptics and the four-dimensional effects. So we always saw that was the big feature and where the best of the content will be, so that's where we wanted to be. We also have games in-home for Steam, because obviously as a business we want to get as many revenue streams as possible. That's sort of how we analyzed it.
Well, we're not an operator, but so I have a little bit of a tangential view of this, but 2 or 3 short years ago, probably even, right, the industry was measuring success of VR basically by headsets, right? And then it was this weird combination of consumer grade content, which was largely coming off of a PC game or game console type experience, and putting that into a VR headset. And then VR headsets weren't taking off as fast as everybody expected, so there was this expectation that somehow there was something wrong with commercial VR, which was all wrong, right? And so rather than the idea that the headset sales were going to drive people into commercial locations and LBE locations, we, 3 years ago said, no, it's the opposite. It's going to be people experiencing VR, hopefully in a really great way at a venue that will then get them excited about taking it back into the consumer side. And so we've always just been about the commercial implementation of VR.
I love LBE. It's so cool. I love watching people have fun and being able to see that, see the products that you've created or you've collaborated with others. Getting to see people enjoy that is just incredibly special. I did spend about a decade or so in the traditional games business, working at THQ, Vivendi, and Activision, making a lot of console games. And then I had a small studio in China doing mobile game development, and that pivoted to doing VR. And we were focusing on the home market initially because that seemed like where everything was going. But it became pretty clear that market is really a subset of the hardcore PC gaming market on the high end, and on the low end, it's that mobile gaming market, which is a very casual market, both of which are difficult to monetize really high-end content. And so it became clear that location-based entertainment coming back to life, which it had taken a dive for about a decade or so, is really exciting to have that opportunity to bring, to actually make profitable experiences before that other market becomes real.
Yeah, I agree. For me, if I have a choice, then I actually wanted to do the home target VR games. But it's for us, it's more like a product market fit that it seems like home market is not really exist right now. So we force ourselves to fit to the market where the market exists as of today. But I think as the Oculus Quest in the market and as the headset is getting better, we do think that the home market will be open in the future. Not know when it's gonna be. So we think that this is like our midterm strategy to find out what people really like, and then as they said, it may open up the opportunity that they may buy the headset and then they keep playing it. So for us, it's just a middle-term strategy to figure out what's the right game to make.
So what type of content do you specialize and focus in developing, and why for your particular customers or your LBE locations? For us, it's social, multiplayer, team building, family-friendly content. So the reason we chose, and now getting into educational, and the reason we chose those is we saw a lot of shooters out there already, and we also, from a business standpoint, we know that VR arcade operators make a lot of money, or their primary drivers of revenue is corporate events and birthday parties versus walk-ins and other things, is from our experience and people we've talked to. So building content that embraces that business model and drives the business model of our customers forward made a lot of sense to us. And also from a passion standpoint, multiplayer, being able to experience something together with your friends, also being something that the customers value as well, and why they go to the location, is very meaningful for us. The fact that we can create content that has some real life impact, that we've shared a memory and we can go back to that memory, or like made a new friend here. So that's sort of why we do what we do.
Yeah, so, well, we've always been about multiplayer, free roaming, room scale and above, right? So there's the kind of the brackets of it. And then we have a variety of first-person shooters and puzzle solving and collaboration, and we put multiple elements of those things into one experience. For us, the other element is also the game structure and the game dynamics and even the play length, right? The smaller experiences need to be designed for quick turns and throughput, and being able to have attributes of it being easy to understand and to get engaged, get immersed quickly, without having to spend half the time learning how to even pull the trigger or touch the device or whatever, right? So these are different than people sitting in front of a PC at their home or in their living room with a Vive, you know, where they've got all the time in the world. They're paying money for that experience, and they want to be able to maximize that time immersed and engaging and interactive with the experience, right? So we try to keep that element in mind, and the experience lengths will vary depending on the form factor, the format, and also the type of experience. So we've got the individual, 4, 5, 6 minute type experiences for quick turns for a venue, multiplayer, two-player, or they can be networked multiple two-player systems. And then we've got the things that go to 15 and 30-minute episodes. And then we've got like the power play stuff that you've heard about, which is match-based competition that you could continue to run for certain time periods.
Just real quick, wanted to echo that. Yeah, high throughput and replayability for that business model, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of the content that we've made ourselves is bespoke content. Things like the Ledge has a window washing platform that we built, and we worked with Applied VR on that experience. We built a motion platform that rotates a turret that we worked on with Digital Domain, created the content for that. A lot of the experiences that we make, you know, we think about the experience first and the technology second, so a lot of it doesn't have VR. That is multiplayer things like the Midway games that we built and the arcade games we build with wacky controllers and whatever it takes to make an awesome experience. But multiplayer social experiences are the primary thing that we're interested in across the board. Things that are bespoke and interesting still are multiplayer in the sense that they have that spectacle appeal. So things like Birdly or the Ledge are fun to watch people screaming and having fun in a solo experience. But mostly it's about those multiplayer experiences because people show up at these locations together with a group of friends or family, and they want to stay together and experience something together. Otherwise, they could just stay home.
Want to echo that again too. Fun to play, fun to spectate, and also going back to the mixed reality videos and sharing. Maybe not everyone's a gamer. Maybe not everyone wants to put a headset or wants to look silly, but being able to involve them as part of the spectator experience is great for the business marketing and getting them engaged, and the whole group of people will enjoy the experience a lot more.
Well, I mean, we know that from a business standpoint that intimidation factor is something that we need to mitigate. We need to get rid of. We need to make it comfortable and accessible for people to want to jump into the headset. And so, you know, there's different opinions on how to do that, but we try to expose the in-game play and the real-time play to the spectators, and so there's engagement. One of our customers is a casino, put it in the middle of their floor of basically, which is a dance floor, took off the headsets, put the audio into big speakers and big screens all the way around, and they purposely make it a engaging spectator participation, yelling and screaming at the players that are going through the experience as well.
And it helps that people look cool while they're doing that.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, for us, yeah, same thing, but like multiplayer and easy to play, no VR sick. Those three philosophy is the very important things, and then make the girl scream. Yeah, that's always something we are chasing.
So let's get into the core of how to develop successful VR LBE content. What are the fundamental design principles that you use when designing your game and developing your game for VR? So for us, we have 5 main fundamental design principles that we use, prioritize 1 through 5 to decide, okay, what should we do? What should we trade off? What's the most important that we should focus on? Number 1 is discoverability, being able to discover how to play the game. As we mentioned here, got to be able to get in, immediately know how to play. No buttons, no menus, just immediately intuitively know how to play. Very simple, casual players, non-gamers, never played VR before. Number 2 is usability. Once I've learned how to play the game, can I constantly repeat that action without grief and without obstacle, making it easy to play again. So it's not frustrating for the player, because once the player gets frustrated, they're going to take off the headset. Number 3 is fun gameplay for us. We focus on the gameplay first. As long as it's fun, people have a great time, they'll share it. As long as it's fun and replayable, they'll replay it over and over again. They'll come back to your location and play it. Number 3 is the experience, the look, the feel, the sound, the audio, the visuals, the haptics. And cinematics and the sort of impactful memory that you get out of it. And then the 5th is sort of the reward, competitiveness, the reward for the hardcore players. So something like score and competition and hardcore skill, very skill-based, hard to master type of skills is 5th for us.
Well, I think you pretty much covered it, right? I mean, really, we can use different words and we can describe it differently, but I think being immersive, and meaning that total, I think about it as like conscious immersion and unconscious immersion. It's like conscious, unconscious, conscious competency, and it's like if I'm in and I think I'm enjoying it, but I'm paying attention to it, oh yeah, this is cool, I'm in the headset, but it's cool. But if it's better, and what we find, like even with the power play, is people, the faster they can forget that they've got a headset on, the faster they can believe that they're just in that immersive experience, the more compelling it is, right? And also you said the reward or the achievement, having some measure of success is not only rewarding at the moment, but it's the thing that drives you back and or the thing that allows you to compete with your family or friends or your buddy. And the other is it has to be something that you can't do at home, right? A game isn't a game is a game, right? And again, not too long ago, even now, I mean, there's sort of some people think, well, it's VR. There's a huge sucking sound, and people would just come in because it's VR. And VR is secondary. What's important is it's an immersive experience, right? And so a PC game doesn't necessarily translate, a single-player game doesn't necessarily translate to a free roaming or a multiplayer experience, even if it's networked. So I think really taking the attributes that you described, but putting those into the envelope of a LBE venue and how it's delivered at the point of sale has to be considered in the game design.
A quick follow-up question on the point about immersion. What specific mechanics have you found that really help put the people in the immersion, stay in the immersion immediately? For example, like aren't people immersed the moment they put on a VR headset? What's the specific mechanics that you found work really well for you guys?
I don't think that's one thing. That's kind of a whole secret sauce. It's like saying, how do you make people not get sick, right? I think it has to be comfortable. You know, immediately, it's a sensory sort of, not overload, but a fulfillment sensory experience. So it's not just looking through this and feel like I'm looking through a pair of binoculars. I have to believe I'm inside of that environment. So if it's comfortable for me and I start to move and it's intuitive, I think that intuitive stuff is particularly at the beginning of the experience where all of a sudden I feel like I'm in control and I'm comfortable. Now I can move forward and start to compete and start to progress in the difficulty.
So what I would add to that is the ease of operations is critical for out of home. It's got to be super simple for people to start a multiplayer session. It's got to be super simple to get people in and out of the headsets and whatever other equipment that people are putting on. Thinking about getting that time down as short as possible, having it be easy to clean, easy to get people in and out of, to get them to understand all of that, you know, making sure that that's super simple. We look at drunks and children kind of approach things the same way, is that they won't read any instructions, they won't listen to any instructions, they just want to start doing stuff. And so you've got to have some kind of onboarding process, tutorial. Everybody hates tutorials, but the experience needs to be tutorialized in the sense that it needs to ramp up from simple to more complex, because people won't pay attention to anything you said. You need to say it anyway, because what happens a lot, and this is traditional across all arcade games, the first time people play something, they pay no attention to anything, and then they go, okay, wait, now I kind of get it, I'm going to go in and do it again, and then they will listen. And so you should never stop giving those instructions, but you just can't expect that people will listen to anything you said.
Yeah, so I think you guys had a great point. One thing to add is while we are making games for home market versus the arcade market, the major difference for us was the play time, where if you're playing at home, it can be played 1 hour, 2 hour, whatever it is. But we found that the arcade owner preferred to have the one play around 5 minutes as a best, or maximum like 10 minutes. So we have to figure out what's how we can cater the best experience within the short amount of time. So that's one of the things that important for us.
And just last two questions I want to move through briefly. Motion sickness came up. So what techniques have you found prevent motion sickness? Real quick, I want to reference an Ubisoft Eagle Flight talk that was made at GDC several years ago. Extremely useful. Check it out. We learned a lot on how to prevent motion sickness from there, and it's very simple. The number one thing that we found helps prevent motion sickness is just reduce your acceleration. As long as your acceleration is less than, I think, 0.5 meters per second squared, I think that was the number, people will not get motion sick. And the cause for motion sickness is when your eyes and the accelerometer gyroscope in your ears, they receive different things and they mismatch. And your body, like VR roller coaster, I'm not actually moving. I don't feel the G-forces, but I see myself moving when you get motion sick. And your body thinks you're poisoned, so you're going to throw up. So reducing that acceleration means that in real life we're used to, if I'm low acceleration, we're used to not feeling that force, that G-force or whatever. So we don't expect it. Our brains don't expect it. So reducing that acceleration down while you're moving the player, whenever you move the player, sort of fixes that. So the body doesn't expect to feel a force, and they don't actually feel a force because they're sitting down or they're standing up. of course, the best way is just to have people walk in free roam or arena scale. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so our solution is we just don't make the player move in the VR games. So that's our solution. But only exception is we have one game that has players are being in the elevator and they go up to the top of the building, and then when they go up to the building, we had a hardware on the floor, so it vibrate so that players doesn't feel it's weird. So except for that situation, we just don't make player to move in the game.
And then.
Well, I was just going to say one-to-one. There's no, replacement for one-to-one movement. Free roam is the most comfortable. When any and all the stuff that was learned from Eagle Flight is great. It is varying degrees of familiarity with VR and video games. Everybody has a different approach, and so part of it is just making sure that to guide people before they get in the experience. If somebody wants to do a roller coaster, they just need to understand that real roller coasters make a lot of people ill, and so it's making sure that people are aware of what they're getting into can help prevent motion sickness, because some people will just opt out.
And a quick note for the operators out there, you're going to find that and you may have already found that a lot of kids don't get motion sick, but the adults do, and that's because the adults over time have gained an expectation in their brain of what the forces are supposed to feel like when they see they're moving in a car, or when they see they're moving in a plane.
Well, just that it's not just the spec of the rate of motion or whatever. It's not something that's easily described, but there's the game design in the environment that your attention, the player's focus is on something that isn't necessarily the motion going by, and the other is the rest of the environment. Is this changing along with the player? I mean, we have situations where you're going down, an elevator into a cavern, and people will come out, and we have no props, and people will come out of there and say, "Where's the fan?" Right? Because that emoted that sensation just by the design environment of the experience.
So the last question is, for all the developers out there, what mechanics have you found make your game only possible in VR? Why VR? Whenever somebody plays a VR game, they have to answer why VR, and what have you found answers that the best for the games that you've worked on? For us, it's if you check out Prison Break, you're running around. It's the social interaction with the people next to you in the arena scale, and you're physically punching, and your actual energy and your physicality is part of the game. That sort of motion you cannot replicate with a mouse and keyboard. You can't replicate on console. And a lot of the social piece of it is really at the root of what we focus on. Why VR?
Well, definitely free roaming. I mean, period. Sort of, that's it. But then also within that, the interactivity, whether it's competition, co-opetition, or collaboration, having that ability to have varied levels of experience. We have some experiences that do all of it at once, right? You're competing against each other. You're teaming up with somebody to get to the next level. You're actually working ahead of the next team. So that interactivity but the free roaming, wire-free roaming is really key.
Yeah, and playing with scale is something you can do in VR that's more we can't do in like the physical story rooms that we build. So that's one. And having larger environments than we physically have is a big why VR. We never start with we're going to build a VR thing. We always start with we're going to build this experience and then figure out if VR is the best piece for it.
Yeah, immersiveness. Yeah, you can experience that scary moment in other console, and you cannot experience that kind of like a fun moment by playing other people in VR. So immersiveness is something we are experiencing.
All right, thank you, everybody. So we're going to open the floor up to questions now. We should have some folks walking around with mics. We have some hands raised up over here, some hands raised up over here.
Okay, so since everybody knows that location-based VR is a very new type of entertainment. It's not like movies or something we're familiar with, so it takes a lot of effort to actually bring people in. So by this title of the topic, which is how to develop successful VR location-based content. So by successful, we should be able to generate enough returns to make our operations keep running, to design contents for the future. So I'm wondering for you guys, what are your experiences in generating profits to keep the content development going? And from your experiences, what are the break-even points for the developers of the VR location-based content?
The developer business model, how do we keep ourselves afloat? Yeah, so we addressed this a little bit earlier. What we do is we have a bunch of different revenue streams. We do the enterprise contracts, we do the mobile events, we sell our package, we do this conference, and then we have our games in-home and we have our games in LBE. That's sort of how we've been approaching it. And I'll recognize transparently it's a tough market. VR market is tough. VR developer market is really, really tough. So that's sort of how we've been approaching sort of continuing to do what we do, is just finding a lot of these different revenue streams.
Yeah, so maybe I can say that first. For us, so we have two ways to make money. One is our own IP game, and then we also do the work for hire for other VR arcade operator at the same time. So in case we do the work for hire for other arcade operator, it's pretty simple that we just make the games based on the budget, right? So that's pretty simple to make a break even. But then when we make our own IP game, I actually barely hear anybody who passed the break even who is making VR game at this point. But in our case, we try to, our company is located in this area. This crazy Silicon Valley, a lot of very expensive to do anything. So we try to minimize our full-time resource, and we try to have a lot of specialists who can access when it's needed, right? So that can reduce a lot of our dev cost. So I think that's what we're doing, but none of our project has been reached out to break even yet.
It isn't that new. So I mean, there were VR centers 20 plus years ago. Disney Quest was open for 19 years before it closed. But it is rapidly growing. So this resurgence is new. And I think that it's difficult to say where that break-even point is. What I would say is that it can be easier to develop for LBE than for in-home. Because you can make a long experience in LBE is an hour. That's a short experience for a home game. And so making something that's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes allows you to really focus on the core gameplay and basically make your MVP and ship it. And then if you want to make a home game, you can see how it's doing in arcades and then decide, okay, now we're going to build this out and we're going to make a longer experience. Replayability is key no matter what. In LBE, not everything has to be replayable, and so it's again hard to kind of drill down to this is the way to do it, because there are so many ways to do it. You can make awesome replayable free roam experiences. That's obviously going to take a lot more dev time to build something that's that dynamic and has billions of permutations. But you can make short, bespoke, incredible experiences without having to spend all the time and money that you would have to make a 3 or 10 or 20 hour long gameplay experience for home users. So I think that the break-even point is easier to find in arcades than it is in-home experiences, but then it's up to you how much you want to invest in that, how big is that game, what kind of scope is it, and then finding that MVP.
So this is a complex question, right? Even a short 5-6 minute experience costs a lot of money to develop if it's a premium LBE experience, right? I mean, we're talking hundreds of $1,000s or over $1 million, right? It depends on how that. And we have studios, not only our own in-house capability, but we work with other studios. So when you say break even, it's a break even for the developer. Now, if you just pick a number, $1 million, and you say how many games need to be played at the cost at the ticket, right? If that's the break even, then we better, as a collective community here, start being more diligent about pressing for being a premium experience to be able to create a premium price and not be pressed into pennies and minutes, pennies per minute of play, because you will never reach the break-even point. You will never capture enough revenue all the way back to the developer to fund high-quality premium experiences. So we have to be very careful about the race to the bottom when we get up here and we promote that we're going to scale VR by making it really cheap, right? It's got to be a premium experience, or you won't feed the development cycle that's necessary to create great experiences.
And now that there are some really excellent LBE experiences out there, the quality expectations from customers are raising rapidly. So most people still have never tried VR, but as soon as they come in and try something awesome, they want everything to be awesome. And that awesomeness is the level of graphics quality, it's the UX throughout the whole experience, it's what happens from the moment you put on the headset before it starts up, all that lobby transitioning time is all super critical to be super tight and polished, because as soon as somebody's tried that awesome thing, they don't want to go back and try something that is less than that.
That hurts. The worst thing can happen for us all is for the consumer to have a bad experience in VR. Right? The best thing that could happen is we collectively raise the bar, set the standard for a premium high-quality experience. That's what will help the business and the industry scale. And big IP won't make up for a shitty experience, right? It just adds to the cost, right? A great experience won't necessarily require a big IP. However, when you add good IP, big IP, with an excellent experience, you get a great combination, right? But it doesn't just pull it through just because it's got a name against it if the experience is crappy, right?
Absolutely agree that's where the market and industry is headed, and that's where we all need to go.
We have time for
one more.
one more. Thank you.
Thank you. As kind of full stack content developers in terms of the software side and the hardware side, how do you balance the generation of, these content and the costs associated with, is it something that goes into the process from the very beginning, or something maybe you think about later on once you've developed the content? I'm curious how you guys rationalize this, or the mental calculus that goes into it.
I'll just jump in real quick. So we originally tried to do full stack. We tried to have our own location. We tried to create our own platform. We tried to create our own content. And we realized trying to do full stack with a small team is extremely difficult. And one of the reasons and focus of this conference here is to find partners who specialize. So what we're focusing on now is what we really want to do, and where our skills really are at, is just the content. And we're here to find the partners who have the locations, who have the software platforms, who have the marketing, the sales to partner with. Sort of how we're approaching that problem.
Yeah, same. We're not creating a destination. We are, through our operating management platform, we are ready, willing, and able to integrate the highest and best performant, best cost options in the hardware part of that stack. So that's why our core strategy revolves around the platform, but then also fueling it with the very best content available is what's going to create the experience.
Yeah, we focus on creation, collaboration, and curation. And so we only create things if it's something that we think would be awesome to exist and no one else is making it or making something adjacent. Otherwise, we love collaboration. We love to work with partners where we can take our expertise to help bring something to out of home that might not have been there before, or but then if there are just great things out there, there's no sense in recreating it or through any combination. If we can curate awesome experiences that people have made, then it makes the most sense. We don't want to make our own headsets. We don't want to make our own computers. We don't want to make our own compilers. I mean, there's so many things that you can leverage out there. It's always better to start there.
Yeah, so for our project with the Bandai Namco, we joined the beginning when we budgeted out how much it should cost to break even for this project, and then we found out it's actually pretty rough to find out what's the right mechanics, because they also only run this arcade about a year, so they don't know really what's going to be happening. So I think we just focus on making fun experience. And then operate it nicely so that we can have a better result later. But we didn't have that well planned out from the beginning.
All right, well, I'd like to thank our panelists for being on stage and sharing their learnings. Hopefully this is valuable to your businesses.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, everybody. Yep. At this point, we're going to move on to the next esports panel, and after that, we're going to have lunch and the offsite tour with Virtual Games Park.